What is going on, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. It's pretty early for me, earlier than I usually go, honestly, earlier than I was planning to go. I had scheduled this to go live at like 11, but the day is pretty hectic already, and some time opened up this morning between my wife and my schedule. So, wanted to take advantage of that to kind of give me a little bit more time to play around with later on in the day. But we are back. This is United versus Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and we are back today with a Man United News Roundup. Lots to cover today. We've got some interviews here I'm going to look at from Kieran Maguire. We got Laurie Whitweel with some comments on Ruben Amorim as well. And of course, a bit of transfer talk as well while we go in there. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're going to dive right into all the big stuff. The under 18s played yesterday. They beat Wolves 2-1 thanks to a late own goal from Wolves. The big fun thing from that was the got to watch Sally play a little bit. Now we were wondering, we picked him up from Crystal Palace in the summer, kind of like the Obi Martin deal, youngster from the academy. Haven't really heard a whole lot about him, but he did play. He came on as a sub. And I got to tell you, the kid is fast, like rapid fast. Has that he has the power in his pace and his quickness of like an adult basically already. He's so fast. Now you're saying like, oh, he came on as a sub, everybody's fast. No, whether it's like Gareth Bale, whether or not Gareth Bale starts a match or he come on in the 80th minute, he's still fast. Like that's just the way it is. And I'm not comparing Sally to Gareth Bale. I'm just saying the kid is fast. So I'll say it again. Our academy is stacked. I'm excited, but let's let's get the transfer stuff out of the way. Obviously, you guys saw the thumbnail. You guys have seen some of the news coming out. One big name that's been in the rumor mill in recent weeks is Sporting's right wing back Giovanni Quenda. We've talked about him a couple times now in recent weeks. We're reportedly interested in him. Supposedly, we're looking at like a 30 to 35 million pound fee. Try to get that locked up right now and get him in here in the summer. Sporting are reportedly holding out for 50 million. But now Ben Jacobs has added a little bit more in last night, claiming that Giovanni Quenda has now agreed to personal terms with United, similar to like what we were talking about the other day with Victor Osimhen. Again, this is a report. It's coming from Ben Jacobs, so pretty reliable source. But he is claiming that Giovanni Quenda and United have agreed personal terms to a summer deal. Now the only thing left to do is figure out a price that suits both parties for us and Sporting. Again, we want something around 30. Sporting are holding out 50. I don't want to pay more than 30, 35 tops with add-ons. But the personal terms sounds like they're fine. And that just usually means wages, bonuses if there are any, and then obviously the length of the contract. It's probably going to be like a 4 or 5 deal with an option for an extra deal, as we want to do at United. But want to know your thoughts on Giovanni Quenda. Obviously, I don't watch Sporting week in, week out because I just don't get the channel. I do watch them when they're in Europe, though. And obviously, I was paying a little closer attention to Amorim. I've been following Gyökeres a little bit closely as after he left Coventry, because you guys know I'm a fan of Gyökeres. But if you guys watch them week in, week out, you like what you see, let me know your thoughts on Giovanni Quenda. What would you spend for him? Would you bring him to United? He is another youngster. He's got good numbers. I mean, his ball progression is excellent. I was looking that up on FBref. So his carries and his take-ons, so how moving the ball forward, beating a man, is in the top 13%, which is pretty good for a 17-year-old. Touches in the opposition box, progressive passes received, top 10 and top 13% respectively. So he's getting into advanced positions to receive the ball. So he is definitely more of that attacking now. With the way that we've set up recently, when we're hemmed back in and we play a back five, we'll see how he handles that, because you're going to get that oftentimes in this league. But he is definitely more of an attack-minded. And again, he moves the ball forward. Again, we've looked at those touches, the dribbles, but his passes, even his progressive passes, top 65th percentile. So really good. And then what I really like about him is his shot creating. So he's in the top 7% when it comes to shot creating action. So getting that ball into the box, creating opportunities. And that's what we need more of at United. It reminds me a lot of what Ahmad's done when he's played that position. So like what I see. We need to look for more than just young players, though. I don't want us to have just, I know the average age of that bench the other day was like 19 or something. And I don't have a problem with building for the future and targeting these young players but we need a mix. I've said it many times. The class of 92 wasn't just the class of 92. They had experience with them. We need a mix of these 24, 25, 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds even too, if we can find like a good center back or a striker in that regard, to balance it out, to bring leadership, to bring experience, to bring a little bit of a CV of maybe even trophy winning in there, to know what it's like to push for those kind of things. So that's what I'm looking at. On transfer targets, though, I might as well get the scouting report out of the way early, too. I have a new favorite. I might have a new favorite to replace Lissandro Martinez. Obviously, we got the news that with the cruciate, he's going to be out probably 6 to 9 months. We did talk a little bit yesterday about the ex-Premier League physio talking to United View, the nature of what that injury and the recovery time entails. So that was a pretty interesting thing. But Leach, we can't rely on him till at least maybe winter next year, probably, with recovery. So, but I do have maybe another potential replacement. So it's definitely a pipe dream since he just joined AC Milan this summer. But Strahinja Plavovlich, if you guys remember this guy. So again, this is someone that I was following for a little while, and then I sort of forgot about, honestly. He made a move this summer. He was at Salzburg. Liverpool were linked to the end up going AC Milan this summer. Still young, like you say, 23, center back. Really good tackling, very, very good with aggression, very physical. His ball progression, both passing and carrying the ball in like launching that first phase, very, very, very good. But I am a huge fan of this guy. He's an absolute titan of a defender. He's a force of nature. I was reminded him of, again, in the summer a little bit when he was linked with Liverpool, like I said, but then I was watching AC Milan play Feyenoord yesterday, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember that guy. And even though Milan lost, so they're out of the Champions League, the 23-year-old Serbian defender was excellent, one of the highest rated players in the match. He's a very, very good game. He's 6'4", so he's massive, very good on the ball, very fast, good passing range as well. He's playing a lot of really good passes to the wide players. And again, such an aggressive physical player. He's in the top 3% right now for tackles, literal top 1% for progressive carries, and the top 17% for progressive passes. So again, exactly the kind of player that we want in that back line. Not afraid to play a pass, and he's very good at it too. 64th percentile for pass completion, so and top 11% for shot creation for center back. So he's getting into positions where he's able to contribute to the attack for the team. So, I mean, the guy's an absolute baller. I'm not just saying that because he's Serbian and he could be a Nemanja Vidic regen. He's just a baller. Again, I think Liverpool were linked with him last summer. He ended up going to AC Milan, which is probably a good move for him as well. So I really like the guy. Let me know if you guys have watched him at all. But Strahinja Plavovich, very, very good player. So moving on to some of the bigger news of the day. We'll start with Laurie Whitweel. So he sat down with Stretford Paddock. He does that quite a bit. He sits down with those guys a lot. Reports a lot on United. He's got some thoughts on his own regarding some of the recent talk that some of these players are losing faith in Ruben Amorim. Teresa, how are you? Says, hi, Sean. I've just watched Semik football stream on Amorim's Manchester United tactics breakdown. Excellent. Recommend fans to watch and understand a little more. Neville should watch it too. Yeah, Neville should watch a little bit more tactics. But welcome back, Teresa. Good to see you. As a journalist, so Laurie Whitweel, he's spoken with Amorim a few times, right? That's what journalists do. And of course, he's probably spoken with a lot of the United squad throughout the years as well. So when I listen to him talk about things, I know that he's had experience meeting with these players and these managers. So when he says that Amorim has the compassion and the emotional intelligence and the communication skills to convey his ideas and get people to buy into a vision regarding his players and stuff and find a way to motivate them to share in those things. I listen, I pay attention to those kind of things. We knew this already. Amorim is a very good communicator, very good man manager, very personable. We know that. But, it was always going to be interesting to see how the added stress and the pressure of United kind of blends with that. You can see he's getting a little stressed and anxious here and there, a little exhausted, but I don't think you can lose some of those core aspects of you when it comes to those kind of things. Whitwell, too, believes that these traits that Amorim has, they do go a long way towards buying him some time with the squad while the results have not been great. When you're able to be motivated, when you're able to stay that kind of positive, that communicator, people do tend to still follow you even when things are hard because they believe in things. And so it's a good trait to have. He was asked about some of the arguments and the statements that we've seen in the media regarding pundits, ex-players, and even a portion of the fan base who are crying out for Amorim to change his tactics. Again, like me, Whitwell doesn't think that's a good idea. In fact, he said the same thing that I've said recently, that if Amorim does end up giving into pressure and starts to change too many things, that could be a reason for the players to lose faith, that they don't think that he knows what he's doing, like he's changing things too much. They're going to think he has no idea. So what Whitwell ultimately believes is that the club really needs to weather the storm. Obviously, they couldn't really afford to do a whole lot in January. Again, I think they could have been a little bit more proactive going into January, especially with like Rashford and stuff. But it is what it is now. But he does believe we need to weather this storm. The players need to do that. The fans need to do that. Ineos need to do that. And we need to go all out in the summer and back him. But I want to know what you guys think of that. Do you agree? Do you think that, again, the players are losing faith? Do you think that Amorim can buy himself some time? Do you think the tactics are work? Do you think it's a player thing? And, do you think that we should stick with him in the summer? Let me know. Teresa says he can refrain from crappy comments and what he's not sure of. Yeah, Gary Neville's tactical analysis leaves a little much to be desired. Teresa says, with regards to the players turning on Amorim, I'd say it's hogwash. Yeah, we spoke about this yesterday. Obviously, we did that long stream yesterday on that news. We see the same sort of articles every single season. We've seen it with every single manager. It's nothing new. I'm sure there are players who aren't happy, but I think those players are the ones who just prefer to play their way. Like maybe like Rashford, for instance. This is how I want to play. Or maybe the players who aren't playing, like maybe Casemiro or something. I'm sure that not every player is happy to not play. Not every player wants to have to accommodate and adjust the way they play to this system. That's going to happen, but then it's up to the players to decide. Now, as far as, and these articles are always tricky, the way they word things, it's always like some of these players, and honestly, it was, dressing room sources and whatnot. So we don't really buy into all that, but it is interesting. So moving on from one major source in Laurie Whitwell to another in football financial expert Kieran Maguire, who you guys know I talk about several times. Now, I like Maguire. He's the go-to when it comes to football finance, the ins and out. I have the Price of Football book behind me. I recommended it in my stream on books that you guys should read. He also does a podcast, the Price of Football podcast. He's a lecturer and whatnot. The guy, when it comes to football finance, he's the guy. He sat down with United View to talk with Flex on United View to discuss some of Manchester United's financial issues. He gave us a little bit of insight on what's going on, the kind of costs and debts that United have, Ineos ins and outs too. So he did kind of preface things by saying that he does not think that Sir Jim's interest in owning United is about money, not like the Glazers. Sir Jim is not at an age, he's already a billionaire. He's already got money. He's like Britain's richest man. Like he doesn't need the money in that regard. He really does want, it's almost like it's a vanity project. Like the sailing thing. There's no money in that. It's simply just rich person vanity project, basically, is what Kieran Maguire said. You want to be the guy who got United back. You want to be the guy known for that. And that's what and I've said this from the beginning. Sir Jim's at an age where it's about legacy. It's not about money. Maguire is concerned, though, that all the negative attention, all the heat, and all this accountability is being taken off the Glazers and is solely being handled by Ineos now. Because what he does not want anyone to do is lose sight of the fact that the Glazers are awful. And he's worried that even some of the poor decisions that Ineos have been making and some of that bad PR is now causing people to maybe forget how bad the Glazers are, but even go one step further. And it's almost making Ineos look like worse in some ways. He said that United has the third lowest wages to revenue ratio right now. So yes, we have the third highest wage like structure, like we're paying the third highest in wages, but our wage to revenue ratio is the third lowest. So we pay £55 in wages for every £100 that comes into the club, which is the third lowest. So we're not losing money there. We've accumulated £960 million in interest since the Glazers took over. So that's awesome. What was interesting is, so Maguire, his refrain throughout the entire interview was, again, just how poorly the money's been spent. As you could see from the thumbnail, like he literally said, spend smarter. Like and this is the argument that I always give people when the media or rivals want to throw out the lazy argument of like United have spent this much, United have spent this much. Yeah, but we spent it poorly. I can go to the grocery store with $100 and I can send a 5-year-old to the grocery store with $100. And I guarantee you, we're going to come back with very different groceries. It's not about how much you spend. It's about how well you spend it. And that's been the difference. We've let people who don't know what they're doing make those kind of decisions, spend that money, and they spent it poorly because there was no plan. There was no structure. There was nothing. We just said, let's get this big name for this much money. Let's pay him this much. Let's sack this manager in 2 years. Now let's get new names for this man. There's no plan there, and it's been poorly spent. Had we made a decision like Amorim 10 years ago, we would be in a vastly different position right now, financially as a club. And it's all ifs and buts, but it's just that's Maguire's point. We've spent the money poorly. He's refrained again. He says how poorly we spent on transfers, even things like catering and concessions and stuff. We've spent loads, but it's all been spent poorly. So the Glazers, amidst all of this, have continued just to take dividends each year, despite there being times in financial quarters where we weren't making any money, yet they were still taking it. He had a lot to say about the tone, the atmosphere, the mood right now at United, especially among the staff. He says it's very tense, very uneasy. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of worry. Everyone's worried about their jobs. He says that there's this tension, especially when anyone from Ineos or their new team kind of enter. He says that everyone immediately kind of gets uneasy because they're not sure, if they're going to be scrutinized, if they're being looked at and analyzed in terms of performance and communication stuff. He says everyone's worried right now. He understands, Kieran Maguire, that job cuts are normal in any industry, and I've said that as much as well. But he was critical about the way Ineos have conducted their redundancies. He says it's been very impersonal, but he says that's kind of the MO for Sir Jim. He doesn't tend to care a whole lot about staff, and he says this is partly what happens when you make your money, when you work in a business and you accumulate wealth in a business that is product focused on, and the product is products. But at United, at a football club, the product is people. And he says it doesn't translate. There has to be a little bit of a different way of going about doing things. Again, he's worried that these kind of decisions and the way Ineos are making these decisions and going about it are not only taking heat off the Glazers, but they might even be making the Glazers look not as bad as they actually are by comparison. And he said, he literally said, we can't lose sight of the fact that the Glazers are the real problem at United. They are the real enemy. They have been for 2 decades. We cannot lose sight of that, despite the kind of shit that Ineos is doing. Maguire doesn't see the financial sense when it comes to these redundancies. In spending nearly $15 million to sack a manager that you just extended the contract for, not to mention the private flights involved to do that process, or like the stupid spending in the transfer window over the years. He doesn't get the sense in doing that, but then sacking staff members, mostly because it's the staff, like the tickets, like raising 3% of the tickets. The sacking of these staff members it's not really impacting the club financially a big deal. Now, I get we had a lot of staff, and it sounds like several of these staff members weren't really cutting it job-wise, but at the same time, how much is 3% of a 33-pound ticket increase going to do? How much is sacking a few people going to do compared to sacking a Ten Hag, the private flights to go back and forth to do these things, go to Turin, go to Barcelona, and come back empty-handed? That's where the real money is. It's the transfers and the wages and the hiring and firing of managers that is really what's costing the club right now. And honestly, is sacking the staff, even if it saves you like $1 million, let's say, a couple million a year, is that worth the negative PR that you're only adding to the fuel to the fire? I'd argue no. What Maguire reiterate though is that Sir Jim is again known for making these kind of cuts at every company he's owned. But again, the labor costs aren't as big as a drain as the cost of sacking managers and spending poorly on players and then losing these players for free. And the only thing it's doing, again, aside from bad PR, it's killing the motivation of the staff. These staff, they are United fans. Their families are United fans. It's killing that motivation, that desire, that passion to show up and go that extra mile to do your job with that passion and that love because it's United. It's killing that motivation because it's changing what the club is for a lot of these people. It was a place of joy, and now it's a place of I don't even know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. And it's shifting a little bit away from that, which I'm not a big fan of. You guys know that I'm not a big fan of it. Like, I understand the cuts to an extent. It doesn't mean I like it, but it is what it is. Maguire believes, and again, like I've said in the thumbnail, like I've said a couple times, the club needs to prioritize doing better in the transfer market, not cutting costs with the staff. We need to spend money smarter, pay down the debt, bring in decent players to start a rebuild, and then revisit all that again in another year. You might have to go a Brighton route where you're going to get some of these lesser known players that are a lot less money and turn around, and maybe some of them you bring in and you sell them in a year, just like we do with like Brighton do with Caicedo and whatnot, because that's what's really going to help. It seems like we are targeting a lot of young players right now, maybe in hopes of unearthing a hidden gem or a future star. Maybe we can make some big money on in a couple of years. I don't have a problem with that either because it will help, but we also need good players. We need a balance of players for the here and now as well as these youngsters, like I said earlier. And we need it to not be just big players on big wages. There's a big difference between Victor Gyökeres and Victor Osimhen. One is on not even 50K a week and one is on like 160K a week. Like, same age, same profile, both very, very good. Like, one is probably the smarter move right now. So I think we will have to sell to buy in order to fix a squad in the short term, but we also have to think more long term about our spending overall and our budgeting and all that stuff. Chelsea, Maguire said, have made $750 million in player sales alone in the decade since Sir Alex left. Every year they're selling homegrown talent. Tomori, Gallagher, all these guys are selling them. They're making money. Mason Mount. We don't do that. Every year, Chelsea are selling homegrown talent. We're not doing that. City, Cole Palmer, same thing. United, on the other hand, we are light years behind in that regard. And even in Sir Jim, that's a direct quote from Sir Jim, we're light years behind when it comes to producing and developing and moving on big talent like that because we just haven't done it. We haven't done anything like that since like, I guess you could argue McTominay, but before that, it was really Ronaldo, right? We need to get a piece of that data-driven pie. We need to start doing better in the transfer market. We need to find some players for the here and now, also players that work in the system, players that are a little more versatile, players who can play multiple positions. That I think that would help because that's going to save you money as well. Instead of having to say, oh, I just need to buy a striker and I need to buy a number 10. Someone like Liam Delap, someone like Matthias Cunha can do both. They can do both, and they can do both well because they have done both. That's going to save you money. Again, the decision-making, spending crazy money on Mason Mount, not listening to Ralph Ragnick when it comes to players like Caicedo. These are just a few instances of how the decision-making, how the money being spent has been so poorly handled by United in recent years. That's just the last few years alone. We got to do better. Maguire says it again, spend smarter, not bigger. You have to do better. What Kieran Maguire says is potentially Ineos' biggest mistake was assuming that because they were so successful in other businesses like the chemicals and stuff, that they would also replicate that when it came to sporting success. Now, we've seen that not happen. I was saying Nice aren't exactly struggling and United are struggling. Again, that's not all on Ineos, but what Maguire hopes is that they don't just think, oh, we're successful here, it'll translate, because it doesn't. Sport is different. Like I've said many times, football is one of those businesses where success is not measured on a spreadsheet. It's measured on the pitch. Even if you're looking at a spreadsheet and there's losses, trophies are way better than that. He doesn't think, Maguire, that Ineos are good at managing businesses where people are the products. Like I said earlier, while they are very good when it comes to products being the product, like the petrochemicals, they're not good when it comes to sporting when people are there because they're not good with people. He made a very poignant point, though, when he reminded football fans not to fall into the trap of thinking that change means improvement. Change does not automatically mean improvement. Whether it's signing a player, whether it's sacking a manager and bringing on a new one, changing one thing guarantees nothing in football. And I've said this many times. We had a discussion recently about this. Like, just because you sack and hire a new manager or bring in a big signing, it doesn't guarantee anything. We've seen that at United firsthand for years. It doesn't mean anything. So I thought it was a really good interview by Kieran Maguire. You guys can go watch that. I watched it a couple times, took some notes, and obviously we went through some of the major points here. Same with Laurie Whitweel. I always got time for these guys because I respect their opinions. Same with Jamie Jackson. I don't agree with everything Jamie Jackson says, but I like his work. On Ineos, on a related note, um, Teresa, what we got here? Amorim is in the business of creating stars. There is a method to his madness. Yeah, I saw. I almost shared it, but I thought it would take a little too long. But there was a sporting fan that put out a thing on Twitter earlier talking about what we can expect from Amorim, and a lot of it does have to do with signing young stars who are hungry, who are hardworking, who he can develop. Because Amorim is all about it's kind of like when Arteta came into Arsenal. The big personalities, the personalities that are a little more um, volatile, I guess you could say, not necessarily ones that are toxic, but the ones that are volatile, the ones that are a little bit more erratic. Those are the personalities that Amorim seeks to kind of get out of his clubs because he likes dressing rooms that are composed, calm. He likes them to be, passionate, but just like productive, basically. Constructive with the way they do things as a team. He values cohesion in the dressing room, Amorim. And if there are personalities that aren't, paddling in the same direction, i.e. Rashford, or players that just don't suit the system, then he's going to move them on. So, and it will take time. It's not going to be an overnight success. There will be struggles, as we saw this at Sporting as well. But you stick with it, you let them build, and who knows what can happen. So, on a related note, Matt Lawton reported this morning that Ineos are seeking an early termination of their multi-million pound sponsorship deal with Tottenham Hotspur. Sir Jim is continuing to try to reduce his overall investment in sport, reportedly. So if you guys watch that game and you guys have watched any Spurs matches, I'm sure you've seen the Ineos logo plastered all over the dugout chairs. I'm sure that was a talking point. But that they signed a 5-year sponsorship with Spurs back in 2022. And so they're trying to get out of that early. They did the same thing with America's Cup team. I forget who the guy was that owned that, but they basically did the same thing. Lawton reports that discussions to end that partnership have been amicable so far, so it does sound like an agreement can and will be reached. So we'll see what happens. Ineos have also recently reduced the spending for their Grenadiers cycling team, and that team is also now seeking new sponsorship opportunities. So it sounds like they're trying to kind of reduce a lot of the exterior financial focus and that effort and that drain and that time and energy spent on these other sporting ventures. And hopefully that means they're able to focus more on United. Maybe there's more funds for United. Like, I have no problem with that. But again, it doesn't matter if the focus is there, as the money's there. You got to do better with the decisions. You have to show that you are learning at least what you're doing. You may not have to know exactly what you're doing right off the bat, because it's very rare that ever happens in life, period. But you have to show that you're willing to learn, you're willing to do better, you're willing to be receptive and almost teachable when it comes to the way that the fans respond and things, because that's the lifeblood of the club, is the fans. But I have no problem with them trying to focus more on United, get rid of some of these other sponsorships. I think the next thing you need to do is go sell Nice. You can make $500,000 easy on Nice, which is still a couple $100 million more than Sir Jim paid $100 million for Nice, has invested 300 or 200 and some odd million of his own into it. So he spent about 3 to 350. Go sell it for 500-600 million and make some money. Invest that into United. You could wipe out a big chunk of the debt with that money right now, and then that gives you one step closer to full ownership if that's the goal. So, like I said, lots and lots and lots to discuss today. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Like I said, I know it was a bit early today, a little earlier than I wanted to go, but like I said, the schedule is crazy today, and this time slot opened up, so I wanted to jump on it and get your thoughts. But if you weren't able to catch the live, not a big deal. Leave a thought in the comment. You guys know I love to read those, and I'll respond to you guys. Rich, good morning, man. How are you doing today? Yeah, right, bright and early for me. It's just 8 o'clock here today, but I wasn't planning to go live until a couple hours, but my wife ended up getting some time this morning, and so I was like, you know what? Let me just jump on now, because that's going to help me out a lot this afternoon, because I got a lot of running around to do. So. But that's it for me, you guys. Let me know your thoughts on what Laurie Whitweel had to say. Let me know your thoughts on Kieran Maguire's financial comments on Ineos, on United, because I thought a lot of that was really, really interesting. Let me know your thoughts on reportedly Giovanni Kenda agreeing to personal terms. Do you like that deal? Do you like the player? How much would you want to spend? Do you think he's the answer? You guys let me know your thoughts. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for stopping by. Please, please, please hit that like button on your way out. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. And I will see you guys for the Everton preview. Probably going to have to do that one tomorrow night, or actually, no, I can't do it tomorrow night. I got a client tomorrow night, probably Friday. So keep a look at that one for Friday. I got a busy day tomorrow. I've got the class and I've got clients. So I'll see you guys on that one. Enjoy your day. Take it easy. Laters.